Thanks for tuning in to the Beer Guys Radio Show. This is our Oktoberfest and German beers episode. We're joined by Ryan Folgegren and Jamey Adams of Arches Brewing in Hapeville, Georgia. We talk about the history and traditions of Oktoberfest, German beer styles, lager brewing and water chemistry, and we sample a few takes on American Oktoberfest and give our favorites. Thanks again to Ryan and Jamey for joining us. Their brewery is the closest one to Atlanta's airport, so make sure to check out Arches on your next trip to Atlanta. Cheers.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yo, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are radio for the local craft beer movement. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios at Ironmonger Brewing in Marietta, Georgia. I'm Tim Dennis.
And I'm Brian Hewitt. This week we're prepping for the greatest beer celebration of the year, Oktoberfest. We'll talk about the celebration and its history and sample some Oktoberfest beers. We've got Ryan Folgegren and Jamey Adams from Arches Brewing here to help us out. Guys, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Glad to be
Appreciate it. We've done a little bit of pre-gaming because we've got a lot of beers to drink, Brian. So
we do.
We've got a lot, so we've had a couple here. But, Brian, what did you get into this last week?
Oh, man, I got into so much stuff. I started off the weekend by heading over to 3 Taverns to go do the double smack. So there was a good turnout there. Pretty big line. There was a lot of bottle sharing. Double smack, I believe. Yeah, double smack.
What is it? It's a big imperial stout.
It's
right?
a big imperial milk stout with I think the morning smack was the original, and that was bananas and
banana
coffee.
Chocolate coffee.
Yes, and that sounds like it's made up, but that really was what it was, and it was really good. So I couldn't pass up double smack, and very limited. Good turnout for that. Ran over to Porter for the 10th anniversary, and they had a very impressive tap list there, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Rose de Gambrinus, they had a dry Fontaine that they were pouring. It was a cuvee, some sort of an Ode Goose cuvee with a very long name on it. I don't know exactly what that was, but it was delicious. It was wonderful. Had a little cottage beer that was a collaboration with them, so they could have that on tap. And I even got into some Arches Lagerdoodle since it was there.
Lagerdoodle.
Yes, I did do that.
Strawberry milkshake, right?
That's right. It tasted very much like that.
I bet they could. You seemed like you were slightly unsure, but I bet we could get that information verified.
We probably could. Right. I was just thinking back on what my tasting notes were of that. And then, after that, we met up out at Dry County, Tim.
We did. Their anniversary. Dry County Brewing had their second anniversary up there.
That's right.
Got to go through there, taste some of their stuff. They're experimenting with spirits.
They are,
so
indeed.
We got to sample some of that because you can be a distillery in Georgia, brewery and distillery, and they had a pre-mixed Manhattan that they sampled, which was fantastic.
Was it a Manhattan or was it an old-fashioned?
I think Manhattan. I'm almost sure. Which one has cherry?
I think Manhattan does.
It was a Manhattan.
Yeah, I think, okay, so it was definitely that.
Right, and then they had a Kentucky Mule premix that they'd done with a bourbon and house-made ginger beer. Both those were really nice. We checked out a new brewery in Marietta, Glover Park, and actually Johnny McCracken's, one of our old haunts, Brian.
A new old
one. So they have been a beer bar, a very popular Irish dive bar for a long time, and they just kind of snuck in there and started brewing their own beer. I will say the beer was not my favorite, but the food there and the service, it's always a cool spot to hang out.
That corned beef and cabbage, man. That's some legit stuff.
I also went by a Reformation Brewery up in Woodstock, opened a new location. Really cool location there. Real big, good place for game day and that. And I wanted to get by, Truck and Tap, one of our awesome sponsors, opened up a new location in Duluth, Georgia.
Yes.
And so that just opened this past weekend. So I have to get up there soon. Next time, Brian. Next weekend. So
one of these weekends when we have, not quite as much to do. We have only like 6 things
beer
instead
is busy,
of 8.
Man.
Yeah,
it keeps you busy. Jamey, Ryan, anything cool for you guys this week?
You name it. We got so much going on. We release probably a beer a week. With our lager lab program that we do, we have a bunch of 3-barrel lagers coming out constantly. We have another 3-barrel program where we do ales constantly. So the tasting room's where it's at. We have our beers in cans where you can get them everywhere. But if you want to have the true Arches experience, you got to come out.
Come to the brewery and try all the cool stuff that's happening there, right?
I can't even keep up.
Awesome. Well, sounds good.
Tim, I think it might be time for Truck and Tap's Beers of the Week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as always, we have a big list of beers. Bigger list this week, actually.
Yes.
So for our Oktoberfest show, we're going to taste about a dozen different Oktoberfest Marts and Fest beers, and we'll talk about that distinction here in a little bit.
We will.
But I know we'll list the whole list on our website, in the show notes on our website when it posts. And at the end of the show, we'll give some of our favorites. We'll chat a little bit about what we've enjoyed and done that. But I know we have Cigar City.
Yes.
We have Sam Adams. We have Yingling, or Yinlin.
Yinlin, as I like to say.
We have Arches Fest beer on the list. And Victory that we've just sampled here. So we've got, I think, all in all, about a dozen. So this is a very loose, unofficial, fun tasting of Oktoberfest beers. And we've got some snacks here today, Brian.
And I believe they're all domestic ones, too.
They are. So, that was something I figured we'd stick with domestics. Go American beer for Germans' Oktoberfest holiday.
American beer for German festival.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, Brian, what's happening this week in the news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so we have a Oktoberfest controversy in the news, Tim. A Munich-based author has accused the women attending Oktoberfest of wearing, quote, porno dresses.
That's a direct quote?
Yeah, that is a quote.
Okay.
I put that in quotes because that's not me.
The dirty dirndl?
Yeah, the dirty dirndl. The dresses in question are, as you said, adaptations of the traditional Bavarian dirndl. Apparently, the dresses have become more and more risque over time with lower and lower cut tops and shorter skirts. Suppliers of the outfit that were quoted in the article were saying that people were specifically coming in asking for sexier versions of the outfit. Okay. So this is intentional. And some people are even complaining that the sexy versions just aren't sexy enough, Tim.
Really?
Yes.
Now, it's interesting that you say this, Brian, because I actually read an article on a different website where they were talking about the sexy dirndl, and we want to apologize now for the way we pronounce all these German words through the whole show. We did actually research. I watched a lot of YouTube videos of that to try and get as correct as possible, but that the sexy one is cultural appropriation.
Yes.
That the traditional dirndl is very much just peasant wear, I guess, and that these were not right. But you're saying people are coming. Is it the locals or tourists?
No, these are mostly tourists. These are visitors.
These
for sure.
Tourists. That's
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I can't say because I haven't actually been there. It's possible, but I'm thinking anybody who's on that darn the Instagram and the Facebook.
Right.
I think those people are to blame.
Those
for this,
are the people.
Yes,
sure,
I think so.
That's understandable.
Yeah. So if you happen to be going to Oktoberfest and are concerned about crime, Germans have a very German solution for you to put you at ease. The Oktoberfest organizers will be using, quote, super recognizers in security this year. And this just cracks me up. So what is a super recognizer, you ask? It's a police officer that has an above-average ability to memorize human features. They are said to be better than normal cops at quickly identifying known criminals under varying conditions and after longer periods of time. So they're basically police with better memories. There will also be a greater presence of video surveillance as police will start wearing body cameras. So you can rest assured your trip will be memorable, especially to the Bavarian police, Tim.
Okay. All right. I believe the last time Germany talked about superiority, they had some issues.
This sounds like the intro to a video game. So we're using these super recognizers, and then some mutation happens, and suddenly it's, I don't know, Wolfenstein or Duke Nukem or something like that.
I'd play that or watch that video.
Potentially.
Game.
I mean, yeah, especially in an Oktoberfest setting, that could be a lot of fun. All right, so we have an update on a wild yeast that was discovered in South America. A short documentary has been released about the, quote, mother of all lager yeasts on the National Geographic website. You may remember that we talked about Heineken brewing a beer with a wild lager yeast that was discovered in Patagonia. As a reminder, that beer was called H41, which is, I think, the name that was given to the yeast. So they used the same recipe as a regular Heineken. And I haven't had it, but apparently the yeast contributes a pleasant clove flavor that's not there in regular Heineken. So when last we talked about it, we didn't know the significance of this wild yeast. Apparently, lager yeasts currently used by brewers are descendants of a known ale yeast and an until now unknown mother lager yeast. This missing parent yeast was discovered by an Argentine biologist when he happened to smell alcohol on an edible fungus in the woods in Patagonia. He was looking for new kinds of yeast. He didn't realize he'd kind of hit the jackpot with this one. So this discovery will open the door to a possible new production of new lager yeasts, and that could mean new beer styles coming up, Tim.
Cool. Well, awesome. We need to take a quick break. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show, and we'll be back to talk Oktoberfest right after this.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Looking for a great way to promote your business? CedarStream has what you need. For apparel, stickers, signs, and banners, we're your one-stop shop. There are never any art fees or setup fees. And if you need your items quickly, there's no additional charge for rush orders. Whether you own a brewery, bar, bottle shop, or other business, CedarStream is ready to serve you. Visit cedarstream.com for more info or call 800-686-7488 for immediate assistance. CedarStream. We print America.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. For more great craft beer info, visit us on the web at beerguysradio.com. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio studios at Ironmonger Brewing, and German beers and Oktoberfest with Jamey Adams and Ryan Folgegren of Arches Brewing is the topic of the day.
It is the topic of the day, Brian, and we've been enjoying quite a few Oktoberfest beers. We just had Bell's in Sierra Nevada. We just enjoyed those, tried those out. So what'd you think of Bell's, Brian?
I was a little disappointed with Bell's. I'm a little sensitive to the acetaldehyde / green apple aroma, and I smelled green apple, and I kind of tasted green apple, and I thought it was a little thin.
A little thin, right?
Yeah, a little thin for my taste. I did not care for it. I'm a little surprised by that.
Jamey, Ryan, thanks for joining us, guys. We do appreciate it. And for those that do not know, Jamey Adams, you are the brewmaster at Arches Brewing in Hapeville, Georgia, the closest brewery to Atlanta's airport.
That's correct. That's correct.
There. So, and Mr. Ryan Folgegren, you are the marketing director. Is that your official title?
Officially.
Officially.
It's a little bit of everything at this point.
Small
but
business,
officially.
you wear what hat you got to wear, correct?
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, we do appreciate you coming down here, talking Oktoberfest, sharing your beers and chatting. We're having fun. This sounds pretty good.
The table is already covered with beer bottles, Tim.
It is. Yeah, it didn't take us long to get into it here.
Just
definitely.
a few.
So,
Just a few.
Yeah. So the official Oktoberfest begins next weekend in Munich on the 22nd. But here in America, we like to Americanize everything we get our hands on. Here, the celebration, we may start seeing them soon. They'll run through October and that. Lots of events. Lots of cities do things. Breweries, of course, do their Oktoberfest events. It's definitely a good time. We take part in it as much as we can here in America.
Absolutely.
Beers and food and celebrations. We love all of those things. So most American beer drinkers have an idea of what they expect for an Oktoberfest beer. But what we know is an Oktoberfest, and we've talked a little bit about this. We're going to dive into it a little bit deeper here soon. But most of what we know as an Oktoberfest beer isn't an Oktoberfest beer that you would find at the festival in Munich, correct?
Yeah, I think that ultimately these beers have been made for so long that there's been some change over time. And then, as you said, Americans like to make their own put their own sword in the ground and say, this is what we're doing. Arches is a little different. We like to do things the way that they've always been done. Our Oktoberfest breaks down into two main categories. You've got your Marzen, or your Märzen, and that was the traditional. And you've got a newer style out there called Fest beer that is a little less hoppy or a little less malty and a little more hoppy. So, there's a Oktoberfest out there for everybody.
So there are differences. There definitely are differences because
Yes.
I've seen it both ways. I know that at one time for home brewers, the BJCP had split between Fest beer and a Märzen. But so Oktoberfest, does that encompass both Fest beer and Märzen?
Yeah, so Oktoberfest beer, which is technically one word in German, if you will, if you will believe that, is
not just Oktoberfest. Oktoberfest beer. That's
beer.
one word.
One word.
Okay.
One long word.
I like that there's I in beer when you're in Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that beer that's technically a Märzen, and so Märzens were being produced since the 1500s. There was a big celebratory event back in the day, big wedding between Ludwig and Princess Teresa that kind of celebrated their wedding, which then turned into Oktoberfest going forward. So Oktoberfest beer was born at that celebratory event, which then carried on throughout the years. And then I believe in the 1970s, it was Paulaner who came out with a Fest beer, which was a little bit lighter, a little bit more bitter, a little bit hoppier. And it was just a different rendition of the style that was just not as malty, not as hearty.
Easier to drink. You can drink more of them.
Yep.
Okay.
That seemed to be the key when I was looking into it, that you could drink in greater quantity, which I think when you're pouring liters of beer at a time, drinking a big, heavy Märzen is a little harder than drinking a lighter Fest beer and potentially lower ABV Fest beer.
Over here, we like them 10, 12, 14%. You can't have many liters of those, right?
Yeah. Living on the edge.
You can't, we're not going to change.
Not more than 2 or 3 liters of those, you know.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself.
They're not very sessionable. I mean, if you try hard enough,
it depends on how long your session is.
That's
right?
true. Yeah. That's true.
But so, like you mentioned, Ryan, the original Oktoberfest was basically a big wedding reception.
Yep.
So they had a party. They had horse races. Used to be a big part of Oktoberfest, and the original event was held at what they called Theresienwiese, which is Theresa's Field, which has been shortened to just wies'n or Wies'n, and that's the name that they use for both the location and the festival itself in Munich now.
If you're in the know and a local, you probably call it the Wies'n or whatever. However you pronounce that, there's apostrophes, and I'm not 100% sure on it.
Right.
Wies'n or Wies'n?
The V and W. So what is the correct?
So a V is a W. So like Weinstefaner as an example.
Weinstefaner,
yeah. So and like we were talking about, we call it Warsteiner here in America, but it's Warsteiner. So the V is
a W.
W is a V.
W is a V.
And then the umlaut, which is the 2 dots over the A in Märzen, is what changes the A from a Märzen to Märzen. So it's a pronunciation thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the V is W and the W is a V?
I don't think.
No, it doesn't go in reverse. It's just the
W
is a V.
I don't think there is a
W. Like bratwurst is how you pronounce bratwurst is what we would say here in America.
All right. So there.
So if you go into like Patak and you're ordering bratwurst, just use your V.
Use your V.
Because they'll look at you like, what? Why are you ordering bratwurst?
So people
we don't have that here.
So for the people listening, Patak is one of the most legit.
Right.
Are they? Where are they? Hungarian? Or are they German? I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Bohemian meats.
Bohemian meats.
Bohemian.
Fantastic butchery. They make some great, legitimate meat products that are very appropriate for Oktoberfest.
Yep.
So if someone were to go to Oktoberfest this year and had no idea what they would expect, we've already covered the beer, the Märzens, the Fest beers. But I mean, what is the ground like? What is that festival about? What is it all just drinking? What more is going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a large celebration of sorts, right? You're celebrating the harvest. You're celebrating the coming of fall. Märzen beer was actually brewed in March. Märzen, meaning March beer. So it was brewed in March, lagered in caves, and then consumed at the onset of harvest. So the festival is really a celebration of harvest. So you've got games, you've got carnivals, you've got people getting together. Obviously, drinking occurs.
Sure.
And they've created a tradition around that celebration. So it's really a big citywide celebration with a sort of a central hub that we've already talked about. But it's you've got a central place where everybody's partying and drinking, but the whole city is really celebrating Oktoberfest.
Now, we brushed on the beer there, but there's some pretty strict rules for who and what beers can be served at Oktoberfest. Is that right?
That's true. Oktoberfest style in general, the name Oktoberfest can only be used by breweries that brew it in Munich, Germany. So the rest of us have to make an Oktober style beer.
October style. So there's Oktoberfest and the
Oktoberfest style.
Oktoberfest
right?
style.
Oktoberfest style, okay.
Yes.
But you can make a fest beer, right? And that's not a problem. Is that correct?
Fest beer is this wide open category.
Okay, so it's just the Oktoberfest beer itself that is, well, it's illegal in Germany, right? To make that without.
Correct. Yep.
So the regulations, are they just, is that it? Just in the Bavarian area, or just in around Munich, or how does that go?
I mean, it's sort of understood, like we were talking about earlier. You can have a sparkling wine, or you can have champagne. Champagne can only be made in a certain region. That's the same kind of deal with Oktoberfest beer. It can only be made in Munich.
And one thing that you don't hear a lot about over here anymore, but still very important in Germany, all of these must conform 100% to the Reinheitsgebot.
Yes.
Correct?
That's
and
true.
that states Bavarian or German or Bavarian beer purity law that states water, barley, hops, and yeast only in the
That's
beer,
it.
correct? And I think it's been, from my research, and a lot of this stuff, German beer gets confusing.
It does.
We looked at it a lot, but I think there's been some slight tweaks to allow for certain natural ingredients and other grains, but pretty tight rules on it. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very tight. I mean, it was
Interesting
established
stuff.
years ago.
Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back to talk more Oktoberfest right after this.
Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock and Alpharetta are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks daily, so that way you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and coming soon to Duluth in 2018. Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery, set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I believe you have my stapler.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, WSLA 1560 AM in Slidell, Louisiana. Catch Beer Guys Radio on WSLA every Saturday at 8 a.m. Central. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio studios at Ironmonger Brewing, and we're talking German beers and Oktoberfest with Arches Brewing.
Guys, we've been drinking a lot of Oktoberfest. I think we're up to 7 or 8 different ones. We're currently sipping a local one, actually super local. This is like a mile from Lou Reset right now. Red Hair Brewing.
Yes.
Which is tasty, man. This is tasty. This is this is my favorite beer from Red Hair. You know, I look forward to this one coming out each year. Hassenpfeffer, I think. Hassenpfeffer.
You know, I might agree with that. I hadn't thought about it, but I think the Hassenpfeffer is the one I always look forward to from them.
Yeah,
every
pretty
year.
Nice. So now we were talking a little bit about the beers of Oktoberfest, the traditional Oktoberfest, as well as our Americanized versions. So the beer, and we had to consult our Oktoberfest expert friend, Owen Ogletree, who runs Brewtopia events. He's been to Oktoberfest several times because our Googling, Brian, as you and I were sitting around Googling last night.
So much Googling.
It's kind of confusing about what the actual official beer of Oktoberfest is. And because when I just look for Oktoberfest, being unknowledgeable on the subject, I assumed that what we were sipping over here was, you know, what they drank there. But according to Owen, the beer has changed recently, that it is a malty sweet, darker golden fest beer. He said it is maltier and a little more ABV rich than a Helles, which for a while the Helles lager was the preferred beer that you would get in most of the beer tents at Oktoberfest. So, Ryan, Jamey, outside of that, there's not a huge selection at the traditional Munich Oktoberfest. It's not like going to a beer fest here in the States where you're going to have 100 different choices, just a very few other options, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And even to build on that, there are only a handful of breweries that are within the city limits of Munich that can actually provide beer for the festival as well.
Right, so you're going to get like 6 different beer styles from 6 different breweries, and that's it. I think I saw a Dunkel. You're going to get a Helles Lager.
Yep.
I think Radler, actually. And I saw the Radler there. They mix it with like a lemon-lime Sprite soda. So Hefeweizen with a lemon-lime, with a Sprite. Hefeweizen and Sprite is a German Fest Radler. So maybe we need to try that, Brian.
I'm down for trying that. That's crazy.
And they have a beer, and see if you can guess what it is by the name. And again, may not pronounce this correct, but alcohol-free beer is what the Germans call it. Can you guess what that is?
Oh, I don't know. Is that a Goza?
No, close.
Oh, I guess it would be called
close.
Goza
Yes,
if it was a Goza.
But they also have a non-alcoholic option there.
Oh, okay.
So lots of stuff. And, they drink a ton of beer there, Brian. I think you actually looked up, you were mentioning the stats on how much beer is consumed at Oktoberfest.
So, yes, I did, and the numbers vary a bit depending on the source, but around 7 million liters of beer were served at the Oktoberfest in 2017. That's about 60,000 barrels of beer, or about 1.8 million gallons, if our math is correct here. That's enough to fill 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools.
Well, guys, Arches does a lot of lager brewing. And, I thought that Germany, when you think of Germany, it's lager. But they do several lagers and ales, the Berliner and different beers. But you guys do a lot of lagers and some German ones, such as the Fest beer. But what are some of the other German styles that you guys enjoy to brew?
So we do a classic German Hefeweizen. It's called Queensweiss. It's available in cans, and it's built on a German water profile, sort of one we've mixed together over the years. We focus heavily on water. Hefeweizen is one of our staples, and here in the next probably 3 weeks or so, we're going to have a Helles of our own. So that's coming up. It's Munich Helles. And it should be available at the brewery, and I think we're going to release it somewhere in town to be determined.
So, we were talking in between segments here about, or maybe even before we got started, you were talking about the composition of an Oktoberfest beer, and I thought that was interesting because I hadn't bothered looking into it. And I think it would be definitely interesting to any of our home brewers out there, but just what kind of composition goes into brewing an Oktoberfest beer, a Märzen?
Sure, like the true Märzen style, in order to get the color, which I think that's one thing we've been looking at with all of the samples we've had is it orange enough? Is it thin enough? Is it dark enough? And the way you truly get that is there's 3 classic grains that go into this. It's Munich, Vienna, and Pilsner malt. And you can have 33% of each of those, and you will make a classic Oktoberfest. And then you have some poetic license there, and you can say, I want to only do 20%. I want a lighter version of it, so I'll do 20% of the darker Munich, and I'll do more of the Pilsner malt. So that's where you get the variations. But ultimately, you can have up to 33% of any of those 3 malts.
But talking about that, I read something talking about the Rheinhausgebot, and several people have commented, well, gosh, isn't that going to be boring if you can't add anything else to it? But there's like 40 kinds of yeast that you brew with. There's over 100 grains. There's or like 40 grains, lots of different yeast, lots of different hops, and the way you implement and apply all of those. So there's going to be some similarities, but there's a lot that you can do. Like you said, even within the Oktoberfest and Märzen styles, you can do a huge range there to keep things interesting. So
yeah, I mean, ultimately, we've been discussing this one topic for the last hour or so, and diving into the nuances surrounding 3 grains. And the complexity that brewers can make using different water profiles, different hop additions at different times. So yeah, it's endless.
No, like you said, water chemistry is a rabbit hole. We could do a whole show and then some on water chemistry. But for the German style beers,
I'm down with that.
Yeah, you're ready. We'll get with you on that, man. We'll make that happen. But is the water chemistry generally the same for most of the German styles, or does it vary with the style of beer?
Well, when you think about Oktoberfest, true Oktoberfest, Märzen style, made in Munich, they're all dealing with the same water. So it's pretty simple there. But that's the beauty of what we do in the United States is everyone has their own opinion of their water and what their water does, and that's why we could all share the same recipe across the United States. I think it would be really cool if a brewery from every state chose the same recipe and brewed it with their water, and then we had a panel taste that same beer.
That'd be fun.
Because we would have 50 different beers.
Right. We've done that on a homebrew scale where we've taken 3 or 4 of us, Brian, I guess, brewing the same recipe, and they're very different beers.
Yeah.
They're just always will be some variations between what you personally do, your special touch. Even if you had the same bottled water and everything, your equipment, the way you do it, the timing and everything is going to make that a different beer.
Exactly.
So much goes into the fermentation and the environment and the temperature that you ferment at, and it's different, especially for homebrewers.
Lots of little tweaks that can be done there.
Different.
Now, guys, we've talked a lot about Munich Oktoberfest. We drank your fest beer. You've got a fest beer release Oktoberfest celebration coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that and when that is?
Yeah, so it's our 3rd annual Oktoberfest party, which is kind of a big deal for us just because it's a fun event. It's a very traditional, very classic type of event. We've got the Alpine Band. We talked a little bit about Patak meats. We usually have Patak meats there. We obviously will release our fest beer that day. And this year is particularly special just because we will be putting it in cans for the first time. It'll be a fun day, fun celebration, and typically everybody who comes out leaves feeling good.
Feeling good, as is the tradition of Oktoberfest, right?
Exactly.
Now, are you going to have carnival rides and all of that there? Will there be a tilt-a-whirl? And
I don't know. We got to collaborate on that, maybe.
We got to collaborate on that.
As long as there are pretzels there. I mean, that's my only real requirement.
We always do pretzels, so yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, so some live band. You going to have German music?
Yeah, so we typically always have a German Alpine band that plays the traditional music, dressed up in the whole get up and going at it. So it's always fun.
Are you going to wear your dirndl?
So I have lederhosen.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say I didn't have a story about sexy lederhosen, so I think you're clear. Yeah, as short as you want that to be.
Now I got to go find those.
Yeah.
See, yeah, be hooked up. Well, it sounds like a good time for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a great time. It's on September 29th from 1 to whenever it shuts down.
Good deal. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We need to take another break, but we'll be back to talk and drink more Oktoberfest right after this.
Are you thinking about opening a brewery in the Atlanta area? If so, take a look at the Park at Georgetown. This unique community will feature a collection of restaurants as well as a craft brewery located within the new JW Homes luxury development, Dunwoody Green. Conveniently located less than half a mile from I-285, this enclave of restaurants will be the gathering place in Dunwoody. Trim & Associates, the developer of the Park at Georgetown, wants to talk to you. For more information, call Stephen St. Paul at 404-256-2960, extension 5. That's 404-256-2960, extension 5.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I meant to do that.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Make sure to follow us on the socials, Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio studios at Ironmonger Brewing, and we're talking Oktoberfest and German beers with Arches, the guys from Arches. So we've talked a lot about your German beers, but if somebody were to visit Arches right now, what would they find on tap? What would they be in for?
Oh, man, it's constantly changing, but we try to release a beer per week. Like I said, we have a Lager Lab constantly pushing the envelope on lagers, pushing the envelope on education to beer drinkers. I mean, you have to think about where we are. We're by the airport. We have constant influx of business travelers. We see the same two guys every week. One guy knows everything about beer. The other guy's just sort of following along, drinking whatever, right? So we have that to offer the unseasonal. That's our buy-in beer for the Coors Light drinker. Anyone who walks in the door gets unseasonal, or actually Southside Lager now, as we are rebranding.
Yes.
It's going to take me about 6 months to not say unseasonal, but it's Southside Lager. We give that to anyone who wants to try craft. Get them in the door. Other than that, we have to keep those people that are interested in craft and interested in trying new things. We're over ourselves as far as got to stick to lager profile, got to stick to these classic styles. Yes, we're always going to have that on tap, but we have to play. We have to have fun. So we have a AAA. It's an India Pale Lager. I mean, I'm not making an IPA. If I can avoid making an IPA, I will avoid making an IPA. So we make an IPL.
Lager it if you can, right?
Lager it if you can. It's cleaner. It allows the hops. These guys in the back are tasting it. They seem to enjoy it. It actually, lagering allows the hops to really shine through. That's what it does. It's a clean beer, and the hops get to shine through. Whereas an IPA sometimes gets a little confusing about the malt profile versus the hop profile. Yeah. Anyway, we're doing IPLs.
Okay.
AAA we'll be putting into cans anytime soon, probably in the next 2-3 weeks. We have something very creative on right now. It's called the Lager Doodle.
The Lager Doodle.
The Lager Doodle. Yeah, it's gaining some steam. This term came about whenever we actually have a guy, our head brewer that works every day. He brings in his Bernadese Doodle.
Bernedoodle.
Yeah, so it's like a mixture of two dogs, like very creative animal.
It's a Bernese Mountain Dog.
Plus a
Bernese
poodle
Mountain Dog plus
a
poodle.
doodle, right?
Yeah.
It's a Bernedoodle.
I thought it was a Burmese cat or something. I'm like, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Now that would be insane.
It's the mix between a poodle and a Burmese python.
That's right, Burmese python. Also very cool.
Yeah, this is the best dog. Has no legs, can't jump. No, so
sheds all the time though.
The Lagerdoodle is a combination of IPA, IPL. Then you throw in some lactose. You throw, you make it a milkshake IPL. Who's doing that? Arches, come down to Arches.
I was going to say just Arches as far as I know.
So what we're really excited about, that's fun and games. It's on tap. It's delicious. But we're looking forward to Baltic Porter. Our 5-week sale, we finally have it in cans. It's coming out in the next, I'd say November time. It'll be in cans. It'll be a brewery only, and then we'll send it out to the rest of the world. So we're looking forward to that. It's a 8.5% lager. That is just to the T Baltic Porter.
So 5-week sale, is that SAIL?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so the story behind that is that it used to take 5 weeks to sail it across the Baltic Sea to get to, so that they brewed it in one location, they sailed it across the Baltic Sea to get to where it was being consumed by the czars of the era, and so it was made for the rich. And it took 5 weeks to get there. They lagered it in the hulls of the ship, so we call it 5-week sale.
Okay,
in true representation of the style.
That's a pretty cool story. I hadn't heard that one. I hear a lot of beer myths and legends and stories, but I hadn't heard that one before.
I'd heard the term, but I had no idea.
Well, I think we're about to get into talking about these Oktoberfest beers that we've drank. So in preparation for that, I Googled some German drinking terms or alcohol-related terms because they have a lot of them. They have a lot of ones. Some of my favorites, Brian, one that I just discovered recently, Frühschoppen, which is means morning drinking, and is a tradition of meeting at a pub late in the morning and drinking a Weissbier. And sometimes having a meal, but the meal's not required, Brian. It's all about gathering at the pub late morning and having a beer. Day drinking, as we call it.
I was going to say, you cannot drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
Early.
If you don't start Frühstoppen.
That's right. You start Frühschoppen.
Frühschoppen. I almost had that.
It was popular. Interesting thing here, it was popular after church service in certain regions of Germany, but with the decline of church attendance, it's less common. And, of course, the traditional cheers of German is Prost.
Prost.
So it's a good time. But, guys, we drank 11 Oktoberfest beers today. But we tried, let's see. So have you guys kind of thought of what your tops are? Do you have rankings here? And Jamey, you've actually lined up the bottles in somewhat of your preference there, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I have them lined up.
Okay. You know what? I've got a top 5, I think. Brian, have you kept your tally?
I do. I have
Okay.
it. I have it online.
Well, I'm going to start with our guest first. Jamey, let me get your top 5 here.
Top 5 in what order?
You know what? Let's go the countdown style and start with number 5.
Number 5 is Brooklyn Oktoberfest, followed by Sam Adams, followed by Highland Brewing, followed by Red Hair, and then the number 1 position is Cigar City.
Cigars. No, you didn't say Arches in there, did you?
You know, I drink enough Arches.
Okay.
I know where we rank.
It's kind of hard to say.
There's a whole nother level.
Being unbiased.
Yeah.
When it's your own beer, you just really can't do that.
We're in the top 5.
Okay, then that's a good place to be, right? Ryan, how about you, man? What's your top 5? Does it agree with Jamey?
Yeah, so I definitely put us at the top.
Okay.
No
question. I'll do
I'm
it.
not
See,
humble.
look at Jamey. Well, I don't know. That's a different level. So,
I think there were a lot of differences in a lot of the ones that we tasted. I really like Cigar City. I actually, not funnily enough, but I really thought that Sam Adams did a pretty nice job with their Oktoberfest.
Okay.
So I'd probably put that as a tie between Sam Adams and Highland. And then I actually really like Victory. So
Okay.
I would put that, I guess, at 5. That would be my 5.
that's the number 5. Okay, Brian, how about you?
So mine, Highland Clawhammer is number 5. Red Hair Hassenpfeffer Oktoberfest is number 4. 3 is Arches Oktoberfest. 2 is Cigar City Oktoberfest. And I think nobody will be surprised by this because I've been talking about it the whole time. Victory Fest beer.
Very
number 1.
interesting.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Well, I'm going to say that your number 1 didn't even make my top 5, Brian.
Oh, I figured because
So-
my palate is so much more evolved.
So
than
much
yours.
more refined.
Yes.
Sure, let's go with that. So let's see. In my number 5 spot, so yeah, I'm going to put Red Hair there at the number 5 spot. In the number 4 spot, I think I'd put the Brooklyn. The Brooklyn is there in the number 4. Number 3, Sierra Nevada. And I'll comment this on the Sierra Nevada. And Ryan, we talked about this, that it had a little hoppy bitterness there that's not necessarily traditional, but I really enjoyed it. So that was super good. Man, I'm giving Arches number 2. It's really nice, and I hope to drink a lot more of it during the season. And the number 1 spot, I'm Cigar City. I'm a fan of that one. I like the flavor profile and everything on that. So, and there was something. Now, Brian, something that you tried to say last week, and I cut it out of the show because I said we were going to hold till this week. Your first Sam Adams that you had this year, you hated.
Yes, I really
Correct?
didn't like it. It's made me think I wasn't ready to drink Oktoberfest beers.
And I had a bottle last week and literally poured it down the drain. So
Intense.
Yes, I mean, because I don't, totally pour out. But these were not bad. And again, some put them in their top 5. So my first experience with it this year was a lot different than what we had here tonight.
It's the same for me. I actually didn't mind it this time around, and I wouldn't have bought it after my last experience.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so it did okay then. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this Oktoberfest German beer show and insanity that we had going on here. We really do appreciate it. That about wraps it up for this episode. Coming up next week, we're going to have our good friend Scott Hadeen from Burnt Hickory Brewery here in the studio with us. I'll be back. Coming back to hang with Scott there. Have a good time. Please do remember to subscribe to Beer Guys Radio on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app, and please do leave us a review. If you really enjoy the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Our patrons get early access to all shows, exclusive content, and some really cool swag. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local.